Yeah, so when we had Warren Sharp on the show last week, he obviously was promoting his new statistical book, which is just this massive encyclopedia. And he made a point that I feel like is a good and fair point about the Ravens in close one-score games and their record in those games. As you mentioned at the top of the show, Garnett West clipped a part of the show and put it up on X. And it's being shared on X for sure. And as Garnett kind of puts out here, he says it's no lies and tags Warren Sharp. Just told the uncomfortable truth that a lot of Ravens flock doesn't want to hear. This is a clip from the Ravens Vault discussing about a bad record when it comes to losing close games, which is quite alarming if you didn't pay attention to the team over the years. So initially, Bobby, there was a lot of like retweets and sharing saying, okay, Warren is exactly right. But then a second round of kind of retweets came in and a lot of pushback. So what I thought we could do is revisit his claim, which I believe is that the Ravens are horrible in close games. And I just chose one person that I respect to represent the dissent from this. And we'll visit that. But let's re-listen to what Warren Sharp had to say about these one close games. We'll get the counter argument on the other side.
Like this stands out for you watching these games or not. You've been horrible in close games. The track record shows you guys have been mind-bogglingly terrible in close games. If I look back since 2020, so the last 5 years, the Baltimore Ravens are 23 wins and 24 losses in one-score games. That is 18th in win percentage across the rest of the NFL, 0.489, below 50%. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who are in your very same division, they are 37-15. They have won 71% of games decided by one score. That's the second best win rate in the NFL. The top two teams, other than the Steelers, are the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. The Kansas City Chiefs are 37-12 in one-score games. The Eagles are 28-15 in one-score games. Both teams are winning close to, if not more, twice as often as they are losing in one-score games. You guys are losing more often than you win in one-score games. And the problem for me is not only is that costing you playoff seeding and home field advantage and things of that nature when you're dropping games like you might do during the course of the season, which who doesn't remember when you dropped the game against the Gardner Minshew-led Raiders in week 2? Who doesn't remember last year when you dropped the game against the Cleveland Browns last season?
Jameis Winston led Cleveland Browns.
The Jameis Winston led Cleveland Browns. So these are games that you've got to win, but it also creates, when you're winning those close games during the season, and it becomes a habit to like, we can crank out these close wins. We are clutch in these moments. That is what, in my opinion, gives confidence to the postseason, which games are going to be close, to allow you to win those games. And look no further than the Kansas City Chiefs. In the playoff games over the last 5 years, this team is 9-1 in games decided by one score. They are winning 90% of their playoff games that are decided by one score. Playoff games are generally going to be close. If you're a team like the Chiefs, who is great during the regular season at winning these games, that parlays into postseason confidence, play calling, understanding what to go to late, and winning those games late. And so the Baltimore Ravens, absolutely, there's no excuse. This is such a good team. It's one of the best teams in the NFL. There is no excuse for teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers to be 37-15 in one-score games. And they're not as good as the Baltimore Ravens have been since 2020. Look at the quarterbacks that they've trotted out there compared to Lamar Jackson. There's no reason they should be 37-15, and you guys should be below 500 at 23-24. And if you're going to compete with the likes of the Chiefs and the Eagles, who are just in the Super Bowl, you have to figure out a way to win these close games. So in addition to my gripe.
Okay, I think that's a good place to stop there, Bobby. I think it goes on for another 30 seconds or whatnot. So, but I think both of us live listening to that thought it was like all fair points, that it's like, the Ravens obviously are, when you hit the playoffs, you're not going to have as many dominant wins. Maybe you can do it in the wild card round, maybe in the divisional round. But once you start hitting the AFC Championship game in the Super Bowl, most likely you're going to have to be above 500 when playing in these one-score games, right? I think we both came out feeling like he had made some fair points.
Yes, just to clarify, and I know you have a whole setup, so I don't want to throw you off track here. The one thing that I talked about after that was, hey, Lamar missed the chunk of 21 and 22, right? So it was a combination of Snoop and Anthony Brown at the time that was splitting duty. It was mostly Snoop in those games, and I wondered off the top of my head how many of those losses throughout those 2 years when Lamar was not under center were close. And I've had a chance to
I
go
have
back
those
and look.
numbers. I have
Okay,
those
you
numbers
do.
coming up.
You
Yeah,
do.
I've
I
got
do as
those
well.
numbers.
So we went
Okay.
and prepped it at the same time. So you got them
Right.
coming up. There were, spoiler alert, there were a lot of close losses. A lot of close losses.
Yes. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to take Ken Mckusick because I think he was the most substantive in the kind of how do we call it? The opposing group who want to give like some points back to Warren Sharp. And because I respect both of these men, we've had them both on the show. I've been on Ken's show many times. So just want to put out their respect to both. But here is Ken's pushback. And just as Warren Sharp was pretty strong in his wording, saying it's unacceptable and unexcusable and horrible, Ken comes with some strong words too. He says this this is myopic BS from Warren. Ken says. He says during the same period, remember this is since 2020, he says the Ravens are 31-6 in games decided by more than one score, not including 2-0 in the playoffs. Among those 6 losses were 3 games not started by Lamar Jackson. So I think Ken is making a good point right here. He's basically saying, let's keep things in perspective with this paragraph. Let's keep things in perspective. Their 31-6 record in games decided more than one score is a bigger deal than their record in close one-score losses, which I agree. If nobody could convince me to say, hey, I'm going to go switch spots with the Steelers, right? Steelers have a much better record in close one-score games, but they're in them more often and they get blown out more often. Nobody wants to trade spots with the Steelers. So I think it's fair for Ken to say, okay, let's keep perspective on how good the Ravens are. So good point there. Then he goes on to say, also, a large portion of the other one-score losses were starts by Tyler Huntley or Josh Johnson, which is your point, Bobby. He says, and then he makes the third point. What do you think that means for 2025? So he wants to point out that some of those close games were under Tyler Huntley and Josh Johnson. I'll get to the stats in a minute. His other point here is none of this really dictates what will happen in 2025. Okay, that's all fair. Every time we look back in any stat, I feel like you can say that doesn't mean it has to happen in 2025. So that's all fine. Okay, he says that Jackson himself has not lost a game by more than one score since basically November of 21, a span of 52 starts, including the playoffs. Said otherwise, the only games the Ravens have lost in the last several years are close games. That's true. That's the best way to put it. The only games the Ravens are losing are close ones because they're not getting blown out. And that is an indicator of a great team. So another fair point there. Then he says the Ravens record is consistent with great teams in every sport. Such teams generally have the characteristic of winning a much higher percentage of their games decided by wide margins, obviously. Don't ever fall for the snake oil salesmen who tell you great teams always win close games. They rarely get into one. So this is where I kind of diverge. I personally don't think that he's being a snake oil salesman. I think he gave a lot of context to other great teams in the same time period in the NFL. And I responded to Ken with those. And I agreed with them. Ravens only lose close games. That's a sign of a great team. We need to keep that in perspective. And I said, that said, there's all this context that Ken just gave, which is good context. And that's why I brought it into the show. Does all that context at the end of the day refute Warren's overall point, which is when the Ravens are good, they're dominant, but they also struggle in close games. And by the way, close games you need to win in the playoffs. I don't think all that context refutes that. And then I felt like because he wasn't being snake oily, because he gave 2 other teams that are also good, that have been in a similar amount of close games. Here it is up on the screen. The Ravens have been in 47 close games since 2020. Chiefs 49, Eagles 43. They're all in the same vicinity. Okay. The Ravens have that 49% win percentage, so they're below 500. The Chiefs, crazy, have a 71% win percentage in close games. That's insane.
And
The
one of the
Eagles,
differences between hardware and no hardware.
exactly the point. That's the point.
The difference.
That's the entire point from Warren Sharp. Eagles have a 65% win percentage. Now, to your point, how about we take out the one score losses where Lamar Jackson did not start? Even still, they did improve, and even still, the Ravens are barely above 500. From 2020, in the games that Lamar Jackson started, the Ravens are 20-18, which is a 52% win percentage. That's still not good enough in the playoffs. That means you'll lose half your playoff games if they're close. It's not enough. Now, that doesn't mean that Warren, I think those stats show that this is not a Lamar issue, right? Because they're around 500, slightly below 500 without Lamar, slightly above 500 with Lamar in close 1-point games. And Warren in that episode pointed out that he's really good in the fourth quarter, including in the playoffs. So he's not saying, I think it's clear this isn't a Lamar issue. Could Lamar always play better in the playoffs? We've been through that. Yes, of course. But it's basically around 500 either way. Do you have the same stat?
And by good, yeah, I do. And by
Okay.
good, he was performance-wise the best 2024 fourth quarter quarterback. So
There you
just
go.
revisiting another point of Warren's, and then you all remember what he had to say about his postseason numbers, because we've covered it a million times this year, that he's on the up and up in January too.
And we know how he played in the fourth and third quarter of that Bills game. Okay.
Correct.
So that's why if you want to disagree with Warren, I'm cool. But that's why I was like, I didn't get the snake oil vibe. I wasn't as angry, but listen, I hear Ken and I hear his context. Keep things in perspective. This is still a great team. Just because it's the way it's been the last couple of years doesn't mean that that's going to happen in 2025. Agreed. He's basically saying the Chiefs and the Steelers are an aberration. Ken is trying to say that the Ravens, if this makes sense, are an average great team in close games. Agreed. So maybe for Warren, maybe it was hyperbole to say the Ravens are horrible in close games, because Ken's point is, well, they're about average for great teams in close games. So that's all fair. That being said, the Ravens don't want to be an average great team. And to get to where they want to go, they have to be more in the vicinity of the Chiefs and the Eagles. And if that means that they have to become an aberration, then that means they have to become an aberration, because this is who they're going up against. The Chiefs and Eagles have won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. Another one was Tom Brady, who was the GOAT, and another one was the Rams. And so, but this is what it's going to take. You're going to have to be above 500 in close games and to get ready for the playoffs. So I appreciate all this context, but I think Warren Sharp's point still stands that they've got to get better in close games in order to overcome the hump in the playoffs.
I'm with you. Great breakdown. I think the one piece of context that Warren could have done, and he put on a friggin' clinic with us last week, the one little context that he needed to maybe add in there and not refer to that 23 and 24. 23 and 24 is not good. But the context that now is on this screen right now, that's actually 2018 with 20 and 18 with Lamar in such games, that's what was needed. And if that context was provided, Sarah, it would have been flawless from Warren. He was pretty darn close to flawless, and we appreciate him coming on. We had no clue that we were going to be covering this again a week after his conversation.
No, but it's become for sure a talking point on X. And Bobby, I just want to make one more point that Cordell Woodland made over at 1057 Fan. He put up close score games with some of the top teams just last year. So if you're like, wait a minute, that was 2020, that doesn't impact 2025, it's so long ago. Okay, fine. So here's Cordell, and I agree with him. I don't know if I'm laughing, but he says, I laugh when people downplay teams during the season for winning close games. Playoff games are usually close, so showing you can win those games matter. The record for the conference championship team. So who went to the conference championships? Kansas City, Buffalo, Washington, and Philadelphia. How do you get there? You're going to have to win some close games. So he's got all 4 of those teams' records just last year, including the playoffs, in 1-score games. Kansas City, 11-0. 11-0. Mahomes is coming in as ranked as like the number 4 or 5 quarterback heading into 2025 because his numbers weren't great. But when they needed to be the best, except for in the Super Bowl, because another quarterback was even better. Like, he was his best, 11-0. Buffalo was 6-2 last year in one-score games. The Washington Commanders, with their rookie Jaden Daniels, was 8-4. Philadelphia was 9-2. The Ravens last year in one-score games were 5-6. It's not good enough.
Yep.
It's not good enough. It has to improve.
Certainly.
Bottom line.
One of those 6 losses comes to mind. The Philly one. And what Justin Tucker's impact had on that. And then a couple of the other games that we mentioned that he was directly involved in, whether it was the Pittsburgh game or the Vegas game in week 2. So lots of context is needed for this conversation. Thought both men did that. And it ended up being a pretty darn good argument. And here we are breaking it all down for you. If you're curious, by the way, in terms of where you can check out Warren's, that was just a snippet. You can go check out Warren Sharp's interview in full. And I think there's still a pretty darn good offer that stands to get his new book for $1 if you use code Ravens. We'll see if that's still in existence or has it expired since we had him on. I don't know. So go check it out. From last Friday, I believe, is when we had that released at 4 Eastern. So special thanks to Warren. And at some point, we'll have to bring Ken back on because he's been a great guest in the past. And I know you and I try to always carve out time whenever we can, usually once or twice a year, to pop on Film Study, which is X's and O's and then some. So thanks, guys.